Classic vs. modern Simpsons. Has the animation changed over time? Oh yeah, of course it has. It'd be weird if it didn't. But is it better? Is it worse? It's quite a topic that I'll probably have to cover over more than one video, but we have been blessed with something quite unique, which we're going to take a look at today. Comparing just the style in general can be a bit tricky from time to time. However, a few years ago, an entire scene was reanimated beat for beat, allowing us the unique opportunity to be able to analyze the exact same piece of animation with an almost 20-year gap between them. You see the opening titles before you now. I'm not talking about that, that's far too easy. I am, of course, talking about the famous
The Land of Chocolate.
The land of chocolate.
So back around 2007, shortly after The Simpsons movie came The Simpsons game. And The Simpsons game came with fully animated cutscenes that were done in 2D and, well, pretty well the style of the show. Now, of course, because game, to make sure I wasn't talking out of my ass throughout this whole analysis, looked very closely at TV episodes made in the same year to confirm that there isn't any major difference in the animation quality. There is a bit. Throughout the video game, there are particularly things like odd cinematic choices, because that's more what you'd see in a game rather than in a show. And from time to time, the character models tend to get a bit off model. Like, they just look a bit strange standing there, so free pass on anything like that. One thing in the game's favor is that it has two-tone shading throughout the whole thing. The show doesn't have that at all. So yeah, props to the game. All of the backgrounds are completely 3D. And there are places throughout the game where the movement is a bit less than what the show is doing at the time. However, the Land of Chocolate scene we're about to watch does have quite a large amount of movement because it is trying to replicate an original scene beat for beat. So how did they do? I'm going to shut up for a minute. I'll show you the modern version of the Land of Chocolate scene, and we'll see if this tickles your nostalgia bone and is how you remember it.
Wow, chocolate half price.
Yeah, that seems about right. Got all the right beats, all the right moments there, everything just as we remember it. Or is it?
The land of chocolate. Wow, chocolate half price.
Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see the difference? There's something about the original from back in the day. There's something about it that is more delicious than the new one. How did they do this? What's actually different here? If I put these two stills side by side, I probably do not need to go any deeper into it at all. We could just call it a day. And that is mostly what we're going to be doing throughout the rest of this video, is comparing the two. And the consistent theme we're going to see is how far a character sheet can be pushed. A style guide or character sheet is the instructions or the rules of how to draw your character, your world, your style. It's a detailed documentation of everything a character can do for everything, really. Facial expression, movement, hand positions, and is the key in being able to train an entire team of animators to draw exactly the same way. After all, the goal of a studio is to get to a point where you can't tell an individual artist apart from another. So therefore, the stricter your rules, the easier it will be for your animators to come to grips with the style. The less flexibility they have, the more time and money you'll likely be able to save in the long run. Character sheets and style guides often change from season to season, and although I have no real evidence for it, it seems The Simpsons is no exception. Homer's face in the modern version has a pretty distinct rule as to how far it can go. If it goes into this O face that you see here, it's still the same shaped head. All you'd have to do is replace it with his smile mouth, and that's it. Notice as well where the actual mouth is, how far pulled in it is on his lip. The original, however, has the O right down on the corner of his mouth. It makes it a lot more cartoonish, a lot more ooh. The restrictions of the modern character sheet can't be bent anything out of proportion to what the character normally looks like. It's bent at the knee, he's got a smile, his arms are up in the air. But the classic version is bent so far out of proportion. Look at both of those legs, they twist all the way around, his fingers are stretched open. He's so happy! He's so happy! But going frame by frame as well, you can see the intricacies now. All that's happening is the head turns slightly, the arms rotate around the chest, and the skip is actually, it's got a few strange flicks to it. Whenever he's down on his lowest point, there's just a crouch motion. Yeah, it looks okay. But when he goes back up, flips around to the side, and immediately is back facing forwards again. The only reason why that's there is to reset the loop so he can land in this pose for the next scene. Looking once again at the original, it makes me laugh every time. You can see most all of a whole bunch of the principles of animation are at play. When he comes down for a new step, he squashes in down towards the ground. The next frame, he's beginning to spring back up. One leg is straight, the other is bent all the way around, touching his body. The whole movement has a very long arc. He spends a full 13 frames in the air. Only one drawing is showing the ascension. 11 frames show him at the peak. Not ascending or descending, completely fully in the air the entire time. And only 2 drawings have him coming back down towards the ground. The modern version also has 13 frames spent in the air. Analyze the last frame before he leaps off the ground, however. It doesn't have quite as much vertical impact. He looks like he's launching forwards. His pose rotates before reaching the full ascension. There are 3, 4, 5 frames before he reaches the maximum altitude. The springiness is just kind of lost a little bit as a result. One last little thing I believe needs to be mentioned about this scene is the design of the rabbits. Did you see that? They change from here to here. They're not just a little bit different, they are completely different. And also on their animation, they're actually motion tweened, it seems. The body is the same drawing being... Oh no, it's not the same drawing. The lines are... Those detailed lines on their bodies do seem to be shifting around a little bit, although there is zero movement except for the ears. The whole body en masse could easily have been shifted from place to place, but it looks like maybe it was shifted in the roughs and then re-inked frame by frame? That seems like a weird choice. Anyway, the next scene is the chocolate rain. I'm not making that joke. This is just kind of a weird moment because the modern version, it doesn't really rain. There are a total of 6 particles coming from the top. I'm not sure why this is. Like, if you haven't seen the original episode, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that this is rain, because those 6 particles deliver straight into his hands. The very next shot, he's already holding a huge handful of them. Again, the original has the piles building up in both hands independently, collects them all together. We spent plenty of time, and it is still raining well into the next shot. I'd also like to bring your attention to this little whip here as he goes to gaze upon the chocolate before him. It's a great subtle extra movement that really emphasizes his excitement, and is comprised of a single in-between leading into a slightly backwards facing face with a contorted look, one more in-between leading back straight into his excited face. Watch it again in real time, and you see just how much it adds to his excitement. It didn't take much to do, literally just 3 drawings, but that's all you need to add that extra emotion, which, as you can see, is lacking in the modern version as he just moves straight into looking at the chocolate. The result is something a lot more stale. We're left simply with, what is an animation versus something that appears alive and excited. And of course, this brings me into the next movement of him having a good chow down on the chocolate. Look how intense these expressions are. The wideness of his mouth, the largeness of his eyes, and of course when he shoves it into his huge gob. Look at that. Meanwhile, unfortunately, The happiness of Homer's face is no more than what the style will allow. Well, credit where it's due, when he does shove it into his face, the mouth does contort outwards quite a lot, but it really can't compare with just how far it got pushed before. I would like to compliment though the crispness, how clean Modern Simpsons looks. Notice the two-tone shading that I mentioned before that exists throughout this entire version of the scene. It seems unlikely that you'd get any technical animation error. Oh. Well, there's a paint bucket error there. Okay, well I don't really want to penalize that. I think every production has those from time to time. And wait, hang on, what is that in the corner? Okay, so there's these two frames here, yeah, of the paint bucket being used inside the hair, but immediately the frame after that is a single frame of something in the corner. Computer, enhance. I think that it looks like, is that a timing chart? I think that's a timing chart. That's a timing chart, isn't it? That is a timing chart. Whoops. When he finishes chowing down, we get a really good example of how tasty you can make this world. And another fine example of how this place goes from just being an animation of Homer in a land of chocolate to being a place that you want to go there. Not because of a drawing like this where he's sitting all happy that he's just eaten it, but because of a drawing like this. That is the face of satisfaction. Also, before we move on the chew section again, right when the fill and timing chart thing is happening, but have a look at the chewing motion. It's, you know, going in, out, in, out. Meanwhile, as I'm sure you're seeing now just how exaggerated the head is, the chew is going up and down in a very... Yeah, I don't think I need to explain that on anymore. Moving on is the skip. The skip is a great moment because, again, it really shows just how much of a great time he's having in this world. It's the kind of animation that you typically won't see in Modern Simpsons too often, but they're obligated to do it here because it's recreating a classic moment. I'm going to give a free pass to this first movement. You can see it's a looping walk. The same frames are repeated as it is motion tweened towards the camera. I'm going to give that a free pass because game. Looking at TV episodes of the same time period, I couldn't see any of that happening at all, so we'll write that off. Also tracking it to what is actually a 3D background here, fair enough. However, this skip movement, where he squashes himself in, is again being restricted by the same things that we were seeing happening in the first walk cycle. It probably is worth noting though, in the original rather than a looped walk, you can see the benefits of each frame being a completely fresh drawing. Not a single time is it repeated here because he moved from the right to the left and squashes really far in on the final skip before leaping right out of it. Really have a look at how much everything squashes in and out throughout these models. Or rather, how much it does not squash in and out. Now, finally we get to the pole bite. Same thing again. He goes to take a bite out of the pole and we see the mouth is stretched a bit further than it normally goes, but it's still not anything beyond a wide mouth. But classic, it's not just opening wide, but it's opening at an angle that we don't normally see either. We're peering up at the roof of his mouth because this is a big bite of a delicious chocolate lamppost. I think that's enough. Now, decisions like these don't necessarily get made lightly. It is almost always for budgetary or scheduling reasons that animation levels have to be pulled back. I hope you got something out of seeing the comparison of these scenes down to a frame-by-frame level, and we're able to see how adding just an extra bit of bend or emotion or secondary movement can add a lot to how your audience will emotionally perceive something that you've created. Of course, the majority of your audience won't notice the intricate and technical details that you've added. However, as you probably would have noticed from the start when we simply watched the two versions of these clips, that one simply has a more emotional impact than the other due to those elements. I encourage you to give it a try. I'm often experimenting with this kind of thing in a personal series I call Creative Journal. Also, for the first time, I am intending to stream. That's going to be taking place at 1 p.m. Friday, Eastern Australian time. So punch that into your internet machine and it should give you a readout for wherever you reside. The link to where the stream will be hosted is in the description below, and I'm hoping it will be a very fun and engaging experience. Like I say, I've never done it before, so time will only tell. But I'll be doing all sorts of things like answering questions, helping you with animation or software, particularly Toon Boom dilemmas. And we'll probably be taking some animation requests as well and trying to churn those out live. Let's see how I do. Thanks for coming along. Tune in to the next Read Between the Frames, all about One Punch Man. Have some fun, and I'll see you in the next one.